President Obama and President Xi met at Sunnylands in 2013. The Obama administration was hopeful about a new direction with U.S.-China relations. Yet since then, it's been difficult to see a lot of cause for optimism. Whether it's China's militarization of the South China Sea or cyber theft or discriminatory trade and investment policies, there are far more downsides than upsides in U.S.-China relationship over these last days. Regrettably, as the strategic challenges increase, the opportunities for positive engagement diminish. I say this as someone who has always tried to take a balanced view towards China in the hopes of fostering a positive engagement because this relationship remains one of the most consequential for U.S. political security and economic interest. We've reached a point now, though, where there's no denying the fact that China has positioned itself as a geopolitical rival to the United States. The calculated and incremental strategy on the part of Beijing to challenge U.S. power is having real consequences for U.S. interest in international norms in the Indo-Pacific and beyond. And it's even more troubling that the administration still doesn't seem to have a coherent China policy. For example, in the South China Sea, neither the rhetoric nor the freedom of navigation operations have deterred or slowed down China's land reclamation activities, including the stationing of military-related assets on these artificial islands. Moreover, many experts assess it is increasingly likely that Beijing will declare an air defense identification zone in the South China Sea. And China could undertake further destabilizing actions if the International Tribunal ruling, as expected, goes against Chinese interest. I'm also frustrated and concerned about the lack of progress on a number of economic and trade-related issues. For more than 4 years, the U.S. and China have been engaged in a trade war over solar panels and polysilicon imports and exports to make those panels. And Tony, I hope in particular you're listening to these comments. As this dispute drags on, it's hurting U.S. producers of polysilicon, one of the main components in the production of solar panels. China's the largest producer of solar panels, and until this trade dispute, the country imported significant quantities of polysilicon made in the United States. I know that Ambassador Froman, and I've talked with him about this, has raised this issue with China's Ministry of Commerce from time to time. But from what I understand, the latest offer from China on polysilicon imports is unacceptable, and it looks like simple protectionism. This market obviously needs to reopen mutually beneficial trade, and I expect this issue to be resolved soon and in a serious way. The reasonable requests made by U.S. polysilicon industries here in the U.S. must be taken into account. Surely the Chinese government and the U.S. government will be wise enough to fully resolve this problem before this committee considers the U.S.-China bilateral investment treaty, should it mature and be ready for putting forth here. As I've said previously, I fully appreciate the complexity of the U.S.-China relationship and the need for constructive engagement on a number of issues important to both Washington and Beijing. But merely managing differences with China is not a successful formula, particularly when such management cedes U.S. influence and places American interest at risk in the Indo-Pacific and beyond. North Korea is one area where we hope that there is additional room for cooperation between the United States and China. I know Senator Gardner will certainly want to get into that with his questioning, and that Beijing will follow through on commitments to fully implement new multilateral sanctions, but only time will tell. I hope we will be able to have a thoughtful discussion today, one that outlines tangible steps the administration plans to take in the coming months to safeguard U.S. interest, preserve international norms, and maintain peace and stability in the Indo-Pacific. I want to again thank our witness. I want to thank him for working with us on the issue we talked about just before the meeting started. I want to thank him for his service to our country. We look forward to your testimony, and as you know, Without objection, your written testimony will be entered into the record. So if you could summarize in about 5 minutes or so, we look forward to questions. And again, thank